Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's session. I'm very much looking forward to this morning's sessions. Let me introduce myself, if that's okay. Mega, is that okay? Introduce myself and then we'll run the panel, or did you want to?
Sure. Let me just first welcome all of you and to the participants also. So thank you everyone for joining in, and we have officially opened the day 2 of the second edition of the Smart Built Environment Forum. We are starting with the facilities management sector, which is sponsored by Bhavani International Group. So we have a jam-packed day ahead of us. So without much ado, let me just introduce the other panelists before I hand over the session to Mr. Paul. So today we are talking about a hot topic and a much required subject to talk about, at least according to me, and that is managing the blue-collar workforce and the value of employee well-being in facilities management. So in this discussion, the panel will explore the importance of taking care of the blue-collar staff, the impact of employee engagement, the training and the development, and the effective strategies that can be put in place to deal with. We have with us Mr. Kiran Jacob, the HR Director of Ejadah Asset Management Group. We also have with us Ms. Saima Ahmad, the Group Director of Human Resources from EFS Facility Services. And also joining the panel is Ms. Evie Boustantzi, the Senior Industry Professional. And also moderating the session is Mr. Paul Bagust. Sorry, I hope I got that right.
It's good.
So he's the Head of Property Standards Director from RIGS. So over to you, Mr. Paul, but viewers, please note, you can post in your questions in the chat box and our panel will address them during the course of the discussion. And we do have an event feed where you can take the discussion out there post the session. Finally, over to you, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mega. Thank you very much. Apologies, I jumped in too early. It's early. I'm dialing in from England, so it's quite early in England. But I'm delighted to be here. Thank you ever so much for having me. Really looking forward to this session. And I'll introduce myself really quickly. So I'm Paul Bagust. I work for the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. We're based in London, but we have offices throughout the world, including in Dubai. And we're a professional body with 150,000 members working in all aspects of the built environment, but particularly interested in the role of facilities management and building operations, property management, and corporate real estate. And that's my particular area. And I'm really delighted to be here, and can't wait for the session. I did sort of want to ask everybody to introduce themselves a bit more formally and to tell us a little bit about your firms and your organizations, if that's okay, just so we can get an idea of the number of people you employ and the scale and where you're based and et cetera, et cetera. So just a little bit from the panelists, if it's okay, and I'll just run down the order I have. So Kiran, if I come to you first, if you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself and your organization.
Sure, Paul, thank you. Good morning, everybody, the panelists and the participants as well. Kiran Jacob here. I'm the head of HR for Ejadah Asset Management Group. About myself, I've been in the region for 17 years now, through and through in HR. As far as my institution, I'm currently with Ejadah for this is my 4th year with Ejadah right now. And if you were to talk about Ejadah as a company, we today are one of the leading FM companies in the country. We do total community solutions that covers the FM side of it, the security side of it, and as well as the consumer side of it, which is Indian services. In terms of scale, as we speak today, we are in the range of 13,000 people in total.
Wow. Okay, big firm. Thank you very much. Next on my list, Serena, is that right?
Saima?
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, okay. Good morning, everybody. Myself, Saima Ahmad, heading the Human Resources Division for EFS Facility Services Group for the last 12 years. EFS Facility Services is operating in 21 countries with 21 operating companies with a work strength of almost around 18,000 people across at the group between Asia, Africa region. I've been an FM professional for almost 18 years now. And thank you so much for inviting me for this forum to share some of my experiences and my insights about the human resource and employee well-being as being my core for the last 12 years with the organization, working with blue-collar workforce.
Fantastic, thank you. And Evie, come to you last.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. I have been in the UAE for the past 13 years. I'm a business leader. Over the past 9 years, I have been transforming companies in FM, in construction, in manufacturing. And I'm currently transitioning to another role, but during COVID, I was managing an FM company, and the workforce was, say, around 500 people.
500, wow. Fantastic! What a great panel. So I think we're in safe hands this morning. I think really delighted and over the course of the pandemic and pre-pandemic really, but really the conversation around the role of FM, has been changing over years. And I think during the course of the pandemic, the blue collar element have been seen as the real heroes of the pandemic in terms of. So I'm really interested to explore that with you. But why don't we start with this might be the only question that we get to ask, but I'll ask it anyway. So Kiran, why don't I ask you, come to you first. So in terms of employee well-being, and particularly in relation to blue collar well-being, why is that something that you think is an important thing for your organization? It's an obvious question, but yeah, let's start there. And you're on mute, Kiran.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right. I think, Paul, I truly believe that any organization is only as good as its people. And it certainly holds true for an industry that is heavily reliant on the skills of its people, like FM. And there's a ton of research out there, that proves that well-being has considerable positive effects on preventing chronic health issues and improving day-to-day health. And I think employee well-being is a basic need, and basic needs should never be a distraction or a demotivator when it comes to employees. Employees deserve to be well cared for, and I believe they are the reason we exist as a business. So, as the saying goes, take care of your people and let them take care of the business. So from an organization perspective, this means that, better engagement and productivity, low absenteeism and attrition, and a workforce that is, built on resilience, and it also contributes to a very strong employer branding.
Yeah, that's a great summary. And Saima, is that how you pronounce it? I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong.
Saima.
Yeah. Saima, there you go.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear that we're all sort of talking about the same thing, and by all means, sort of chip in on that. But what do we actually mean when we're talking about employee well-being? Just so, how do you define that?
See, employee well-being in a nutshell is to create an environment at work to nurture our employees' personal, professional, functional development, keeping in mind their physical, their mental, and as well as their psychological needs. So when it comes to employees, so that holistically they are successful and they are happy working for the organization towards the end, which boosts the organization's performance. So we need to create that sustainable ecosystem for our employees, for our blue collar workforce, to ensure that they get that environment and they are able to give the best to the organizations. As in an FM industry, the product what we sell is our people, right? It's not, they are all different with the different set of their behaviors, their emotions, their needs, their worries back home. So we need to ensure that all these individuals who are representing the organization on the ground are happy and fully functional on the ground. So all these things, as an HR professional, we need to ensure that that ecosystem is provided to our workforce.
Yeah, thank you. And Evie, just by way of introduction, is in terms of your sense of employee well-being from where you sit and what you do in your role, is would you agree with that summary? Is there anything that you'd add to that?
Yeah, my colleagues here summarized it really nicely. I see the same thing. When we bring together the physical safety and the mental happiness, then you do create those conditions where people flourish. And when you achieve that, people enjoy a fulfilling work that comes through sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, and they see themselves grow and prosper, and with them their families grow and prosper. And then at the same time, very importantly, they live a healthy life and they live a longer life that we have helped achieve for them. So yeah, we are yeah.
Thank you. And in terms of the context for today is blue collar well-being. So is this a new thing we're talking about, do you think, or is this something we've neglected over the years, or is this something that has just evolved and developed and has become higher up the agenda? Because blue collar workforce often doesn't get spoken about at conferences and the well-being, etc. And so I'm interested in the specifics of the blue collar aspect of this, and whether this has been something that we haven't addressed in years gone by, 5 years, 10 years ago, or is this just something that's always been happening, etc. So Kiran, I'll come to you first, but by all means, everyone just put your hand up and respond, but I'll put that to you first, Kiran.
Sure. Paul, the way I see it, if you ask me, yes, there has been some sort of activities happening on this from a blue collar perspective in the past. But what has happened is that with the pandemic, this has created a whole lot of focus around employee well-being and blue collar, because as you see, when the pandemic hit, I think the vast majority of workforce that went into work has been the blue collar workers. So today, I can say confidently that there's a lot of focus around welfare and welfare standards and well-being of blue collar workers. And we also need to take into consideration that the generation of workforce that is coming into work today, it's the millennials. Okay, so their expectations from work, be it from whichever background they're coming from, socioeconomic background they're coming from, the expectation from work are vastly different from the previous generation. So yes, to answer the question, so there's a much more focus around this area, I would say.
And Saima, is that something that you've seen? Is it something that's relatively new in terms of the focus within your organization?
Okay. Paul, as an EFS is concerned, we are a people first organization. And for us, this has never been neglected, because blue collar is our frontliners, our people on the ground. And I would say with the current pandemic situation, our focus of engaging these people, the well-being has evolved, has transformed with the techniques to ensure that our people, our feet on the ground, are fully engaged and their well-being is taken care of, because what they see up front with a lot of stress, whether it is about virus, whether it is about insecurity about the job, whether it is about the conditions back home, that worries them. So as an HR, it's important that we ensure all these aspects while they are being part of the organization. And with this pandemic has taught us that we don't need people interacting with us face to face. We are able to engage them on the ground with all the new forms of technologies. Where they are, we are able to engage them with with, having virtual sessions, or probably, giving them the online tools to interact with us. So all these has helped us to ensure their well-being, and they are connected with the human resources at any point of time. So I would say it's not been neglected, but it has been involved, and it has been in more focus these days, what was never into the picture few years back.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And Evie, do you think the blue collar element has not been at the forefront in the past, or is it just something that has always been, but it's increasingly just come to the fore over the pandemic?
I think it's. I think it was the importance was growing slowly the past few years, because we are in a service industry. We do realize, people know that if our workers are happy, our customers are happy. So that realization was coming slowly. But I have to say that even though people understand that, it was a difficult thing to convince, let's say, leadership or shareholders, because you couldn't quantify necessarily the benefit, the return on that investment, let's say. So I think COVID was a much needed wake-up call. It has definitely accelerated the need to have fulfilled, happy people, healthy people, delivering your services. And I think in that respect, COVID has been a blessing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, I think it's a good idea. We've accelerated. Lots of trends have been accelerated, and lots of improvements. And I'm really interested to hear some of the. I was fortunate to see some of the awards entries, and there were some amazing entries in those awards, and really impressive. And I'm really interested in some of the things you actually did, Saima, in terms of what your organization actually put in place, and some examples perhaps, and some of the things that actually demonstrate how you deliver well-being, because that's obviously the important piece, is delivering it into the workforce.
Exactly. So when this pandemic was hit, and our people were supposed to be at front, ensuring that they become a shield for many others to, not to get infected with these viruses, it becomes equally important for us to, ensure their safety and their health. For that, we as an organization took proactive, measures. Contingency plans were defined well on time, having the sanitization done in their accommodations while coming and leaving the accommodations. There was the isolation centers being set up to ensure that our people are being taken care of within their premises, and the spread of infections is not going around within the accommodations, where we have minimum 500 people spaced out of in the staff accommodations. Their health checks, their well-being, their awareness sessions across the accommodations at the work site. They're giving them the gear to protect them, while we were also a part of the vital sector, which is the healthcare sector. The confidence from the management, where starting from the group CEO itself, along with the senior management people, while we ensured that while our people were working 24/7, we were working as normal, right? So we don't think so that there was any senior management person, while the entire world was in lockdown, we were working from home. We were there in our offices, giving them that assurance, that confidence that they are there with them, standing in front of them, ensuring that their safety and their well-being is taken care at that point of time.
And thank you. And Kiran, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah.
Saima, go ahead.
And at the same time, the most important aspect for a blue-collar workforce is about their job security and their financial stability. So as an organization, as being a people-first organization, EFS ensured that whatever disturbances was there at that point of time in the pandemic, the jobs were secure for our people. Whether we have to upskill, we need to reskill, or we need to develop them with any other training needs to ensure that their jobs are safe as well as whatever we have committed to them in terms of their payouts has been released on time, because there is a family which they need to take care of while they are, fighting against this virus, safeguarding, the world. They have to, send that money back home to ensure that the families are taken care of.
Thank you. And Kiran, in terms of what you did and how you supported your workforce, do you want to talk us through some of the things you did?
Sure, Paul. I'd like to split it into two. First, I would like to talk about the generic things that we have done, to take care of our workforce in general, and then the additional steps that we took during COVID to take care of the employees. So, in general, what we've done is one of the couple of things that we've done is basically ensure that we have a good compensation and benefit strategy, specifically addressing blue-collar workers, because as we all know, they come from not that privileged socioeconomic background. To ensure that they are rightly compensated has been a key priority for us. Again, the other aspect we look into is we look at it from a growth perspective. Again, these are typically jobs at the lower end of the spectrum. Yes, not everybody who joins us gets promoted in the next 6 months, or but we do provide ample opportunities in terms of growth. So whenever we win a new contract or a new client, we always ensure that we provide opportunity for our internal staff to grow into bigger roles. Accommodation facilities is another thing. So we do provide good accommodation facilities that includes recreation facilities, free Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is if you look at Maslow's theory. So today Wi-Fi is a key component or a key requirement to especially for these blue collar workers, especially that they're staying away from their families to keep in touch with their families. So we do provide that a good medical insurance scheme that takes care of the health, and if they have any sort of medical issues. We also have a HR concierge office in our staff accommodations to support employees, so they have access to HR staff in case they need support. Well-being sessions that cover things like BMI, diabetes, prostate cancer, and free health checkup. It's kind of what we do when we sign on our insurance companies. So they regularly do free checkups, health checkup for guys. We've also introduced an HR app. So typically when you're talking about blue-collar workers, and when you're talking about a workforce of 12,000, communication, two-way communication can become very challenging. So we've introduced an HR app today that is easily downloadable by all of our staff, and there is a section in it where the app has all the functionalities of normal HR services, but also has functionalities to raise complaints, concerns they have, which is then looked at and then addressed. We also do regular engagement surveys to assess the engagement level of our staff, and accordingly introduce services or enhance standards depending on the survey. Now, if you to ask me about what we did during COVID specifically, so when COVID hit in March 2020, it was quite unexpected. Say the entire country shut down, and we had over 1,500 staff, suddenly facing the prospect of work at that point in time. So the immediate priority was basically to ensure that they got paid. So what we implemented was a rotation thing of schemes. So which ensured that all these people who were demobilized got to work at least 15 days in a month, so that at least they get paid for that period of time. And also, I think we have been very, we also had the large number of staff who were, who resigned and serving the notice period or completed the notice period, and then suddenly they were all flight restrictions. They couldn't travel at all. And similarly, we had another 500 people who were on vacations outside the country, so they couldn't travel back either. So I think we were among the first companies to, push for chartered flights. So after the initial lockdown period, I think it started in March, and by June, July, we were able to repatriate all our staff who was stuck in UAE through chartered flights, and have them reunited with their families. Then other things that we do right now is, yes, people do. We are not out of COVID. People still, blue-collar workers still continue to be exposed to the virus, and there are protocols around the virus in terms of, you have to go into quarantine for a period. I mean, in 2 cases, if you're positive or you're in close contact, you have to go into a quarantine period. So the question is what happens during the quarantine period in terms of pay, and also we continue to pay them, and also we provide for free food during the quarantine period. Okay, as a company, we also provide for free PCR tests for all our staff, respective blue collar or white collar, to ensure that if there is an exposure or if there is a concern, so they get to do the PCR test, which is covered by the company. I think one of the key, I would say, successes for Ejadah as a company was the vaccinations. Okay, so again, when you have a large workforce of around 12,000, how do you get them vaccinated? They have busy schedules, clients, So there's been a lot of efforts. Yes, in the initial phase, it was a Sinopharm, so it was relatively easy. I wouldn't call it easy, but yes, it was doable. We tied up with Saima, and we brought the vaccination to our camps, ensure that people could get vaccinated at their own convenience. And we still continue to do the same thing. Only thing is that we can't, because it's Pfizer, we can't bring it to the camps. We continue to take them to the medical facilities to take the vaccine. And I think one last thing is basically all the people who were stuck outside the country, we successfully brought every single one of them who wanted to come back, and we did not have to let go of any people due to the pandemic. Yeah,
that's amazing, Kiran. I mean, fantastic to hear stories like that. I think really investing in people and really backing up the words with some actions is that's always the test, isn't it? To make sure that the good words get backed up with delivering of those words. And Evie, have you seen anything that sort of caught your eye or you've been impressed by in terms of some of the responses of firms in terms of the well-being side of things during the pandemic?
Well, from our side, and everything I've shared here, and we've seen so much. I mean, last year was very hard. It was very difficult for all our people. And aside from safeguarding salaries and the health and the accommodation, making them comfortable, we focused a lot on the culture side. So we already had a cultural transformation strategy in place to be implemented. It was on the way of, we were continuously implementing parts of that, and we didn't stop during COVID because, there was a lot of disruption because of all these limitations, but we continued because the mental mindset of people was so critical. So we instilled a values-based culture. We did our campaigns. We made sure that people started talking the same language through our values, same service language, focusing on behavior and what is important, and linking that to the values of people and the purpose that they want to serve. As part of that, because engagement, I know pandemic was hard, but I consider the second pandemic that is already in place is the disengagement of people in the workforce, and that's big. And that was there before COVID. It's not a new thing, but during COVID it was further emphasized. People were demoralized completely. So we worked a lot on that connection with people and bringing them on board. And one of the values was innovation, and we used that for giving a voice to everybody and making sure that people were contributing and feeling that, you know, their ideas really mattered to the company and their colleagues, and they felt proud about that. And we had idle workers at some point, and we tried to find ways. Of course, we didn't let people go. It was all about safeguarding, but we found ways to give them a heightened sense of purpose by reskilling them, as Saima mentioned. We found ways to allocate them to the COVID field hospitals where they learned new skills. More extremely, we found a way to allocate them to a production factory for food safety of the UAE. So there was a lot of purpose that was coming out of that, and people felt proud of, you know, delivering something new, learning new skills, but also helping the society and helping the company survive, you know, because, you know, carrying so many people, if they're not as busy as before, you have to find ways to get them busy, but with a purpose. And we actually got the MEFMA award for that as well, for the food security part. So yeah, culture was the main thing that we focused on, but number one priority, as everybody said, of course, was safety, health and safety. So yeah, just to add something to the mix.
Thank you. And we've had a couple of questions come in from the audience, and please do keep them coming in. I'll get to the questions as we work through. So anybody interesting, please do ask questions in the chat, and I'll pick them up. But just on that sort of thread, though, I just wanted to sort of develop it a little bit, Saima, in terms of fantastic what people have done in terms of what your organizations have implemented, and incredibly impressive. But in terms of the benefits, so we'll talk a bit about the benefits to the workers, but in terms of the benefits to your organization, what do you what's your sense on that in terms of how your organization has seen?
I would say that every organization wants to be a sustainable organization, and that can't be done without the people. And as an FM industry, people being the core, people being the asset, it's important for us to ensure that the people are committed and they are satisfied. So when we did our employee engagement survey, in the middle of pandemic and as well as, end of the year last year, we have seen 97% of, employee satisfaction. The progression, the people wanted to be committed to the organization. There has been retention ratio which has been increased, which we thought probably would have gone down. But with the commitment what they have got from the organization, we have seen that there is the retention where people wanted to stick to the organization, and they believe that there has been, as an organization, we have given them the opportunities to learn, to grow, to progress in the organization, where many of the organization was only focusing on how to get rid of them without, paying them what they are basically, need to have it as their end of service. We as an organization was developing. we as an organization was investing in them. So I feel that people were very much connected with the organization's values, seeing that how the organization and the management and the organization is working towards that values, strengthening that values from the ground to the top level. And we all were aligned with that commitment coming from the organization. We were able to retain our businesses. So in terms of the organization's growth, there might be an effect, but it helps us to open a lot of business verticals along with within the core business of FM, which would be the sanitization business, you know. So there was a room to expand, and that helps us to basically give that sense of security, that confidence to our people within the organization. So I would say the benefit is from the people as well as to the organization, because organization itself can't achieve anything without the help of the people. So for us, the achievement of our people is the achievement of the organization for the long-term sustainability of the organization. So the continuous resilience and the tactical approach of the organization, including the transformation as the core, which was the need of this pandemic, has helped the organization to come back with the results, which probably most of the organization would have not thought of.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And Kiran, I'm interested in what Evie was talking about, culture and the culture of the organization, how well-being can help sort of articulate that. Is in terms of the benefits to your organization and that piece on culture, is that something that you've noticed?
Absolutely, Paul. So see, I'll just go back to what Evie said in the beginning. It all depends, the return on investment. Okay, the value that your shareholders or your stakeholders see in providing this. So this has a direct link to the culture. So if I were to put in terms of, if I were to speaking to the CEO, stakeholders, just to put some numbers around this. So over the last 3 years, because of the various initiatives and steps that we have taken towards this, we've had a reduction in attrition rate of 12%. So 12% over 12,000, you can add up the numbers. It's massive cost to the company in terms of not just the replacement cost of itself, but also you're losing out a lot of knowledge, when these people leave. So in terms of savings, this has had a significant impact when it comes to reduction in attrition. Your engagement scores go up by 0.2%. So I'm not sure if you know how the metrics of engagement score works, but then 0.2 is considered a quantum leap when it comes to over year over year. So that has been another significant achievement, I would say. Improvement in our customer satisfaction scores, our CSAT and our Net Promoter scores. Okay, due to all the things that we have been. So reduction in disciplinary actions that we have had to do. We've had a 7% reduction in disciplinary action. So again, when you're dealing with blue collar workforce, this is a huge area. A lot of issues when it comes to enforcing discipline. So reduction of 7%, and most significantly is a reduction in your absenteeism. Absenteeism is another area that affects blue collar workforce. So when you quantify all this and put them in numbers, your stakeholders see the value that this brings to the business. And I can tell you today, I think the management is much more supportive. And actually, I've reached a stage where today management is pushing me to kind of enhance our worker welfare policy to have this enhanced benefit for the business. So that's how I would put it.
Thanks, Kiran. That my next question, which is the one you asked, and I'll ask it to Evie, was really around how you measure the benefits, because you know, I think sometimes, well, it's always important to measure things. I think RSCS is, we measure everything. So I mean, Evie, in terms of how, you know, how do you measure the success of the policies? And you know, Kiran's touched on some, you know, very impressive sort of stats and, you know, huge leaps in terms of, you know, engagement and response to that engagement. How are you doing that?
Well, I have to say that cultural transformation is a very, very long journey. It takes a number of years, and you have to be patient, and you have to persist, and you have to have leaders who are authentic and living and breathing your values, and they are role models for everybody. And when I say leaders, I mean everybody who is actually managing people. That could be anyone throughout the organization. Now, measuring the results of your strategy and your initiatives to achieve that, I would say further from, employee engagement survey is one very important measure. Regularly getting the vibe of the workforce. At the same time, the customer satisfaction. And that needs to be done really in an honest fashion, independently, or you know, in many different, with using many different types of collecting this feedback. So I would say employee and customer satisfaction are really key. They are key measures that really matter, and they show a very important trend there. Further from that, you see how business is doing. You see if there is growth, word of mouth is positive, which means people care to get your services, and so on. But I personally always strike the human element, which is your people and your customers, what is happening there, and then the growth in the background, because that is the result ultimately.
Thank you. And Saima, similar question, but in terms of, just to flip it around, so I can see the huge benefits to the organization in terms of you know, sort of culture and performance and measuring. It's fantastic. And how are you looking at the benefits to the workers in terms of how you're measuring the impact of the policies on them? Obviously recruitment is an issue, but sort of beyond that, in terms of well-being, how do you capture that?
That is captured in their, you know, the benefits aspect of it, how it benefits them comes out from their, the opportunities, what they receive from the organization, how they are developed in the organization, whether it is, you know, moving from a blue collar workforce to a white collar. There has been an opportunity for people where they have joined the organization being employed as a blue collar, and today they are working in a white collar positions in the organization. So I would say that is the growth, that is the benefit. There are benefits such as the life insurance was given to our blue collar workforce, while, you know, anybody who has been infected with these, you know, with the COVID was insured under the life insurance scheme. So the benefits in terms of employee being in the organization is derived from his growth in the organization, his development opportunities in the organization, his learning, his knowledge, which he enhanced while he is part of the organization. Apart from that, he is able to uplift in his profession as well as in financial stability. So I'm proud to say that, you know, all these aspects is very much visible in the organization, where today we are being, you know, validated by the government with platforms such as Takdeer and Sheikh Khalifa Excellence Awards, which has recognized us this year, where they see that we have, as an organization, have taken a lot of initiatives for the well-being and the benefit of our workforce.
Thank you. And Kiran, just quickly, I'm looking at the time, but in terms of how you measure the benefits to the employee, that would be that's difficult, but just interested in how you capture that.
See, Paul, the way I look at benefit to an employee, we spoke about it. Today when we talk about it, I spoke about the competitive compensation package. Okay, are they being fair or better than their peers in the industry? That's one question. Okay, if they're getting better paid, that's definitely a bonus. Attrition reduction, which means yes, the number of people trying to leave the organization voluntarily means to a certain extent, or can be deduced as people are happy within the organization with the benefits that they receive. Number of growth opportunities. So if you were to ask me, we've grown close to around 100% over the last 3 years in terms of headcounts. We've gone from 6,000 to 12,000, and 20 to 30% of these new positions were filled from within the organization. So the other aspect would be the growth opportunities they get within the organization. Yeah, I think to summarize, it's basically, I would put it, growth. Okay, it could be, if not within the company, it could be even outside. So the measure would be what has a person learned within the organization, what has he contributed at the end of his career with the company. That's how I would see it.
Yeah. And it's obviously an investment and a commitment from all the organizations have clearly invested and committed to this and thought this through a lot. And I think that's interesting, and I definitely want to touch on that. There's a question which probably feeds into something you said, Saima, which is quite a specific question. It is talking about health insurance in terms of blue collar workers, and I think Saima, you covered it.
Yeah, life insurance. Yes.
Life insurance is health insurance.
Health insurance is it's a mandate requirement, from the organization. So there is one is a health insurance, and second is the life insurance. So with that pandemic and with the uncertainty of the life of the people, which was where people were hesitant, probably going on the side, we were assuring from our end that God forbid if there is any casualties due to COVID, we are not only taking care of them, but also their families at that point of time. So we insured all our workforce who were, get trapped into this infection was insured through the life insurance.
Right.
As well, yeah.
As well. And Kiran, in terms of the health insurance question, is that something that's an issue in the region?
See, previously, I would say in the past, but I think now there are robust regulations around health insurance policies. So there are guidelines by DOH which is the Department of Health, and HAD in Abu Dhabi, which clearly outlines companies' obligations in providing the required medical insurances. So yes, we've come a long way in terms of health benefits. Now the question is what additional benefits can we provide over the legal regulations, what the legal regulations mandate. On the life insurance, yeah, it's the same thing. As Saima said, we also do provide life insurance for all our employees across the organization. Yeah.
Thank you. And just to move on, I mean, I think it's fantastic that we've got people. I go to lots of conferences, and they very rarely get HR. And I always think HR are they're the perfect people to talk to when you're talking about the role of people, and it often gets neglected. So I'm really anxious to hear your experience and your knowledge, and particularly FM is an industry that often is reluctant to talk about how good it is at things and how successful it is and how important it is. And I'm really keen that we do kind of shine a light on the profession. So I'm interested from an HR perspective in terms of other industries and their responses and what you might have seen. Do you think FM is is really a leader in terms of understanding these well-being issues, because they're it's completely at the forefront of the service you provide, and it's critical. I mean, are other industries looking at FM and saying, oh, crikey, we could implement this, and etc. Evie, is that something that comes across at other events where you probably sort of talk to people in other industries? Is that something you're noticing as as FM as a leader? That's an important theme, I think.
I think during COVID specifically, we were at the forefront of crisis management because of the role of the people, because our people were out there supporting with sanitization or with maintaining systems, or with, all of that is keeping our customers, the tenants of properties, safe and keeping their life in a role. So I think we became somehow guides into how to manage the crisis. Plus, as it became so emphasized that people are who we are, and we have to treat them well so that they care to deliver the service that is so important to our tenants. We came up with solutions because of that need as well. And there are so many examples that Saima and Kiran mentioned. These examples are, many of them came out of the need to manage the crisis. And FM was, as I said, at the forefront. So yes, there are many lessons for other industries. And people did, I remember colleagues from other industries asking, how are you dealing with this? Or what challenges are you facing because your people are facing all these constraints and they're demoralized? And how do we deal with this situation, not only now, but in the future? So yes, there are so many emphasized issues that came up, and we had to deal with them no matter what. I mean, we kept working throughout the pandemic. So many industries were contained and not necessarily dealing on the ground with the crisis, but we were. And that's why we came across all these problems that we had to resolve fast to move forward. So yeah,
thank you.
We are an example.
And Saima, would you agree? I mean, in terms of your interaction with peers in other industries, the FM industry strikes me as being a huge example for others in terms of delivering well-being to their employees. Is that something you've noticed? Are people asking you, what did you do?
Exactly. Many of the industries were not even knowing what to do, right? And as an FM industry, we didn't have that option to ask, others what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to do. We are supposed to deliver. We were the responders, the first responders, where we have to respond without, thinking over it. We have to respond. So definitely the decisions taken by many different industries, many big names, I would not take names, but many big names, brand names across the globe has taken very vague, and very, I would say very sad in terms of how they have built up these organizations with thousands of people, and then suddenly, they didn't even take it, thought of once how to communicate and how to engage with them to ensure that how we all together overcome out of the situation, and just left the people without knowing anything, and moving these people into a stress, the mental stress and this uncertainty, which has led to the health conditions, the overall economy instability, and that has actually had more negative impact on the entire situation. I felt the organizations would have done that, the decision of not having work and probably laying off people would have been communicated in a much more engaged manner, which would have left a positive impact, across the world. So the entire situation with most of the organization was not dealt in that in that sensitivity. And I would say that that would have done that. Most of the organizations would have done that.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I know we've only got 5 minutes left. So I mean, I think the blue collar workers have been the real heroes of the pandemic. I mean, I think that's, I sitting in London, I was getting calls very early on about FM being the absolutely critical function to keep the buildings and the services open and provided. And so it's been great recognition for the industry and something we need to build on, which I wanted to touch on really quickly and probably in summary, but we'll have to do it quite quickly in terms of, Kiran, I'll come to you. Lessons learned, what the future might look like, how you might build on where you've got to in terms of, and specifically relating to the blue collar workforce and what your plans are for how to ensure we don't kind of go backwards here, we continue to move forwards in terms of the industry, but also your commitment to your teams. Just interested in your sort of plans for the future and really your optimistic view for the future, hopefully.
Sure, Paul. See, I think the key learnings of the past 18 months of the pandemic has been that there's a general tendency to view people as costs. Okay. I think the pandemic has proved it wrong. Okay, it has really brought to the front, the value that people bring to the business. Okay, it has also thrown light on different perspectives that employees do value the support that they get from the organizations more than just the monetary benefits. I think the way forward in terms of future for not just the FM industry, blue collar workers is basically, I think there's a lot to be done around welfare standards and recruitment practices and other things when it comes to blue collar. But we need to understand we work in a very, very price sensitive industry. So everything comes with a cost. So we'll have to find a fine balance in terms of achieving that. And I cannot begin to emphasize the importance of technology. How do you leverage technology to optimize your people experience? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so many questions I haven't had a chance to ask around using technology and data, etc. Next time we'll do that. Evie, just in summary, your sort of lessons learned, hopes for the future, etc.
As we all said, the pandemic really demonstrated very strongly it's all about people. Now, it demonstrated how as businesses we need to focus on becoming agile, because that was a big hit. It was a kick in the teeth, let's say. Agility was a big thing. We need to be prepared for not only the worst, but to keep working on our maturity as businesses, on long-term sustainable maturity. And a key concept that came out of that was that we cannot achieve that without having our people there with us on board, honestly driven to achieve with us and to achieve not only for the company, but for mutual benefit. And this only comes when, as I said, leaders of people are honest and they're authentic and they live by the same values as what they preach. So overall culture, I would say this cliche, culture is strategy for breakfast, and you need a strategy. You need a cultural strategy that is not just a set of initiatives, but an overall framework that brings people together, a glue for people to stick together and deliver, achieve as a team. That's my summary, really.
Thank you, Evie. I'm told the session's over, but Saima, I want to hear from you as well. So we've got a couple of minutes. So if you could summarize, but relatively quick, and then I'll summarize the end. But yeah, in terms of observations, hopes for the future.
Sure. Paul, I'm very proud. I'm proud to say that organized EFS as an organization, has always worked on a strategy about people first. And that has given us a success to ensure that there is a business stability. And the lessons learned, I would say that we could continue being adopting the people first strategy, ensuring that there is a resilient, tactical, and a transformation approach is adopted across all the business functions.
Thank you, Saya. And I just wanted to sort of thank you all. I'm sorry we've sort of run out of sort of time, but I think thank you ever so much. I mean, as I said, it's really interesting to hear from people who have a industry perspective but an HR view. It's more conferences should follow this approach where we hear from the FM side and and also other bits into the IT and the tech side as well. But I think in summary, it's been a really helpful session. Really interesting. I've really enjoyed it. It's pretty clear the industry has responded, magnificently to an unprecedented challenge, has really delivered on its commitments, in terms of its commitments to its customers and its commitments to its people. And that's a really difficult balance. And Kiran, you mentioned cost sensitive. It's really in an industry that is so driven by cost to keep those commitments, and that requires real leadership. And I think the FM industry, has really stepped up in terms of its leadership and its commitment to good words. But actually, I'm really proud of the way we've responded as a profession, and it's fantastic to see. So, and people first. I think you've all said it, many times now. It's a people industry. And we back up the fact that we deliver for our people, and they're really important to us, and we recognize the value that they provide and the benefits that you get as a company, but also the benefits they receive as individuals. So it's been a fantastic session. Mega, if you're interesting, if you're listening, yeah, by all means join, or I'll just end the session on time. But if it falls to me to thank everyone for your time, really enjoyable session. It's been fantastic. I look forward to hopefully doing that again at some point in the future where we can go into even more detail. But thank you all for your time this morning, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of the day. But yeah, thank you very much, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.